Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh boy, sorry for the slight delay there. I think, I don't know what happened. I inadvertently disconnected myself. Oh dear. This is after I just finished writing 100 times. Kansas is not Oklahoma. Oklahoma is not Kansas. Yesterday, I ranted for quite a bit during the show about the voters of, well, I don't even want to get into it, the voters of Kansas. Extraordinarily pushing back on the Supreme Court decision. And I consistently said Oklahoma instead of Kansas. And all the time, a number of you were trying to tell me I was doing it. It's Kansas, not Oklahoma, is on my email. But the thing was, I wasn't looking at my email, so I kept going. And your efforts to get me to stop making a fool of myself went for naught. But I have to admit, it ruined my day. It did. I just was embarrassed. And I realized that, and I think I said at the end of the show, that when you when you talk extemporaneously, yapping for hours at a time, invariably, it is almost rare that you can get through an entire hour without saying something you regret, or something incorrect, or some choice of words and all wrong, you know? But for some reason, that one just really freaked me out. I make little notes here to myself before the show about what I want to remember to talk about. And I had carefully written down that I should talk about Oklahoma. That's what I'd written down. So it was a done deal before I opened my mouth, which then, of course, leads me into worries about my brain and, you know, my age, and whether or not I'm losing it. And I'm reminded that my brother, when he was younger than I am now, and younger than he is now, he actually wrote an entire book called Losing It. And it was, let's see if I even have it here. It was, I got Faking It. That's a different one. Losing It, though, was sort of funny until it wasn't. But he wrote it because he could ascertain that his brain was not as supple And I think he wrote it, he was in his 60s. And it just freaked him out that the brain he had always known, and which had supported him throughout his life and given him pleasure as well, seemed to not be anywhere near as acute as it had been. And so he actually started doing research into what happens to brains as they age. And it really freaked him out. Because the brain I am employing right now is, in reality, nowhere near as good as it was 20 years ago. It just isn't. It's slower. I can tell from Jeopardy. You know, I know the answer, I just can't retrieve it as quickly. But the truth is that all of you have the same aging brain as I do. There's some amazing number of brain cells that start dying on you. From the minute you're born, they start going. So that I just want to say that I was really mortified. Obviously, or I still wouldn't be talking about it. So shut up already. Nothing like drawing attention to your deficits. Well, I had said that I thought Nancy Pelosi heading off to Taipei as she did was needlessly provocative. I didn't get it. I still don't get it now that she's back. But look what's happening in her wake. We had American destroyers in the waters out there. Then the Chinese got their guys going. And right before we came on air, I saw that Japan is reporting that 5 Chinese missiles landed in Japan's territorial waters this morning. So the Chinese are shooting missiles. Now, in order for these missiles to have ended up in Japan's waters, and I'm not looking at a map, which is probably a big mistake on my part, but I have it on relatively good authority that those missiles, well, 4 out of the 5 are known to have overflown Taiwan. So somebody explain to me how poking at a hornet's nest seems like a good idea. Ever. What? I don't get it. And there was a lot of concern that it would, cause trouble. And see, this is the kind of trouble. What if one of those missiles inadvertently hit someplace? Japan, or rather than landing in the water, or came down a little early in Taiwan. So Nancy, was the trip worth it? The grandstand, was it worth it? I just don't get it. And I don't pretend I know if I'm correct in this. I mean, maybe there is some reason you poke a hornet's nest on occasion, but it just seems to me when there's other hornets that are out there and already agitated, but what do you need more flying around for? I don't get it. Do you know how many days I have awakened in my home here, and to the sound of buzzsaws? There are more trees that are being taken down, and guys, I don't see them being planted. It breaks my heart. I happen to be in a neighborhood with incredibly old trees. It's one of the reasons the neighborhood is so lovely. It's what drew me to the street I'm on. And I swear there may be half as many trees now on my street as there were when I moved here. And part of it is they're aging out. I mean, they are old, and it's hard to be an old tree, like it's hard to be an old anything, but it's hard to be an old tree in an urban setting, particularly with all the concrete. And it's just not your roots are constantly disturbed by people building things. I don't know. It breaks my heart. And I came upon this Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. I'm just passing that on because truer words were never spoken. Speaking of sound and the sound of buzzsaws, I was trying to read something that kept disappearing on me because it said I had to subscribe. And I swear I already am subscribed, but I guess I didn't know I don't know. The world's too much for me. Anyway, I was trying to read this thing, and it was about sounds and about how so many sounds become sounds that are just part of our natural environment, background. They don't disturb our sleep because they're a constant. Now, when I lived in Manhattan in the 70s, that constant was traffic, horns honking, all kinds of stuff like that. And so much, it didn't wake me up. Then I go home to visit my parents in the quiet of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I couldn't sleep. There was no traffic. There was no honking. It was just quiet. So our bodies acclimate to what we consider to be, normal sounds. And the article really, though, is about how right now, as we sit here, there are people who are trying to figure out what sound an electric vehicle makes, because they're going to have a sound for safety reasons. Otherwise, they'd sneak up on you, scare the hell out of you, or kill you dead. So imagine that, trying to come up with what the sound is. Anyway, I couldn't read the article because I couldn't get on. But that's an interesting job, huh? What did you do today? Well, I determined what sound will be so common throughout the world that it will not disturb the sleep of billions. Its absence might disturb the sleep. Isn't that something? Got a caller? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hi. How you doing?
How you doing? Hey, you mean a chainsaw, not a buzzsaw. A buzzsaw circular.
Oh, right. I don't know. What's
see, I'm catching on. If I'd say something that wasn't in your line of work.
All right. Yeah, that's right. So what's the difference?
Chainsaw. Besides that,
okay, it's a chainsaw. What's a buzzsaw?
When you cut the trees down, that's less leaves and less leaf blowers for you. How's that? I don't like cutting trees down.
No, that's not good. That's not good. So wait. What's the difference between a buzzsaw and I know what a chainsaw is. Yeah. So what's a buzzsaw?
Buzzsaw is a circular saw, like a table saw type. Well, it's got a big blade.
Okay.
And it's circular.
So does the other one.
Okay.
Is a chain. You know what you sound like? This is what happens when people who want gun control say, and and you give the wrong, iteration of some death-dealing, gun. And then the pro-gun type says, you don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah.
That's not a... No. You know, to me, they're all like, you know, I'm back in the 30s with submachine guns. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big gun person, but when you were saying about China doing that, I think that was just being cute. I think if they really wanted to lay some bombs in Japan, that wouldn't be a problem. They're just, you know how they are, just blowing some steam off. Say, well, we do.
Well, no, but that's what she was. But that's what she was doing. This is that kind of thing that, you know, stagecraft, performance art on a global scale, where, you know, Nancy heads to Taipei to poke the hornet's nest, and then the Chinese have got to do something, and this is what they do, and everybody's just posturing until, of course, something goes wrong. Because when you start shooting missiles and start posturing, stuff can happen. You know? You know,
yesterday, I think you were talking about that Jon Stewart with the military. And my thing is, why did they have to have the bill to cover that? That should have been if you go to the service, you get out, there's something linked to that, then they take care of it. I mean, they had the veterans hospitals, so why couldn't you go to Veterans Hospital and get taken care of?
Well, it was the VA. It was the VA that was turning these guys down.
Yeah. But yet if somebody is in combat, they'll give them a surgery for a heart bypass or something, where they could do it on Medicare, because most of those guys, the older ones, are on Medicare anyway. So I don't understand the whole, unless they're getting it cheaper somehow through Veterans Hospital. But I mean, see, they open the hospitals up for all the veterans, where the combat veterans that have the real injuries that related to the combat, they can't get done because they got them all filled up with all this other stuff.
That doesn't seem right. Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
I really believe veterans. My father-in-law was in World War II. He got his foot blown off. He wouldn't even go there. I mean, he went for his braces, but he just didn't. You know, wouldn't go. He didn't. He felt somebody worse probably could go. But I just don't understand. If I was a veteran, and I wasn't in combat, I would say take care of the guys that really did something. I just
and are injured as a result. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And then if you have room for me, that's fine. But see, our country is so goddamn selfish. They just think of me. And then they walk around bragging like, oh, I was in the service. We went for service. I could have gone in the service, and it was peacetime, right after the Vietnam War. I mean, it's just people went there for just to have a job sometime, or, you know, didn't know what the hell they wanted to do. I don't know. It seems like it's all ass backwards. The people actually did something. They say, "The hell with you. We're the ones that count." I don't know. That's my whole idea of it. It just makes me mad.
Okay, go. Go forth and be mad. Go forth and be mad. You're an American, and you got every right to be pissed off constantly.
I feel good about this election stuff now. I really.
I know you do. I feel slightly less bad. Yeah.
I actually think they're going to keep the House and get seats in the Senate.
Okay. Yeah, really? You think every Republican will lose?
I think the governors will change too in some of these deep South states.
Yes. Yeah, and that'll go both ways. Yeah, I know. I don't know about Texas.
Well, maybe Florida.
That would be something. That would be something if Abbott got knocked off. That would be something.
Yeah, well.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, thanks.
See you later.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Barbara writes, oh, dear, maybe I'm not ready for an electric vehicle. I went out to get something out of my car yesterday, 3 hours after I had parked it in my driveway. I first heard my radio. Barbara. You're an old coot too, I guess. First I heard my radio, and then I realized the car was still running for the last 3 hours. You know, you're lucky it wasn't in your garage where you could have been carbon monoxided to death. I now need a checklist before exiting my vehicle. make sure to turn off the ignition, maybe remove key from ignition, but some vehicles don't even use them anymore, but I guess it could have been worse. A friend in our age group attempted to exit her vehicle. I think Barbara's saying exit her vehicle because that's a phrase that just makes me crazy. It's police talk, right? The actor attempted to exit the vehicle. But, you know, the person was tried to get out of the car. Why can't we talk English? A friend in our age group attempted to exit her vehicle before turning off and also forgot to put it in park. She was very fortunate. She was in an area and her vehicle did come to a stop on its own, but not before knocking her over with no injury. Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I haven't done anything that doddering yet. Not yet. Actually, I remember there was a night where I was awakened because there was a sound outside that was not the norm. And so my brain said, not the norm, not the norm, wake up, wake up. And it was emergency vehicles. It was a fire truck and there was an ambulance and cops. It was my next door neighbor. And I went running over there. They were elderly couple. Now that I think about it, they were probably about my age. And they had gone to sleep after a night out, and he'd left the car running in the garage, and they lucked out in that they had a carbon monoxide detector, which went off and informed some service they had, but they were still blissfully being poisoned to death, right? So, oh my God. Yeah, stuff happens. Speaking of, I said, so somebody's going to be able to brag. Oh, you know, my father, why are we so rich? My father invented the sound that all the automakers decided to use. I mean, they're going to have to come up with a pretty uniform sound, aren't they? I mean, you can't have like a different sound for every different kind of make a car, because that would be a nightmare. You got to have, you know, a sound. This is the sound of an electric vehicle. So you can imagine how they're going to arrive at that. I don't know. But they got to come up with something, because the fact is you can't hear the suckers. But so that's an unusual job. And I came upon, and maybe you saw this too, and I didn't know if it was a joke. And this is another thing about and I don't think it's about getting old. I think it's about living in this world where we're being, trolled all the time, or where people attempting to get attention, prank us, or marketers do something that causes a tizzy, and you gotta, it's just like you navigating all of this makes you sometimes wonder, is this like a joke? Is this for real? Is this intended to make me feel like an idiot? This was in the Washington Post, and it says that some company in Canada that makes candy is hiring a chief candy officer to earn, well, in American dollars, $77,000 a year. And the job is the lead taste tester. Says here, the job requires trying more than 3,500 pieces of candy per month, or more than 100 a day on average. I thought, well, what? Okay, right there. Is that real or not? You tell me. So some company put this out, and right here, the Washington Post says, this eye-catching ad has attracted widespread attention. Well, so then I'm thinking that was the purpose. a moment of whimsy in the stressful realm of job listings. So I still don't think it's real, because it goes on to say the job is open to anyone in North America aged 5 and up. Yeah. See, now we know it's not, and you can't have food allergies, right? So there's kids all over that are applying for this. And it does add that the role comes with an extensive dental plan. But then the article goes on to say, okay, but here's the real deal. I mean, people who make candy do have to have taste testers. They do. Can you imagine that being your job? Oh, yeah, I was a taste tester. Actually, Hershey, which we in Pennsylvania know something about, recently posted a part-time taste tester job. Part-time. Actually, they call them a sensory panelist. And the ability required is to discern differences in appearance, taste, texture. You have to have an incredible ability. And then, digging further into the story, we find out that if you get a job like that, you are required to take 6 months of training so that you can identify a million different variations of chocolate and that every Hershey's Kiss has to taste exactly like every other's Hershey's Kiss. And over there at Hershey's, I mean, they got chocolates and their food all over the place that you can pick up anywhere. But even so, more than 500 of their employees have signed up to get paid more for tasting. A woman named Lisa Schrader is the taste tester for Mars, which makes M&Ms and Snickers, Twix. And she got that because she had the ability to identify and describe flavor, basic tastes, and textures, and henceforth she is a sensory technician. Here's a guy, Josh Harrison, who worked for an ice cream company, and his taste buds were insured for $1 million. In tasting the ice cream, he used a gold spoon to avoid any notes of wood or metal. He said that he could immediately distinguish between 12% and 11.5% fat by taste alone. He tested more than 60 flavors of ice cream a day. He didn't swallow. Like a wine taster, he spat out each spoonful. Here's a quote. I start with the whites, vanilla, French vanilla, vanilla bean, double vanilla, and then work my way up to the mint chocolate chip, black walnut. God, some people got some really interesting jobs. It reminds me of a guy I did a story on when I was working as a reporter at WTAE in the 80s. And I traveled down to PPG because this guy had a job there. And his job at PPG was the paint namer. Anybody who's ever tried to decide on a color for a room knows that You can lose your mind. There are 7,000 different whites. And this guy had to come up with the names of the Pates. He was this very sort of, it was odd. He was so odd. What a job. What a job. Man. All right. I probably told you that before 100 times. Okay. I seem to be avoiding the heavy duty stuff. Speaking of jobs, though, I was watching that show, Finding Your Roots on PBS. And they were doing the actress Marisa Tomei, whose roots, not surprisingly, were, I believe, heavily Italian. And she was talking about how that she never, thought much about being Italian or anything like that. She just felt like a regular person, regular kid. And then when she started to try to become an actress and tried to find jobs, she kept hearing people say things like, well, I don't know, she's pretty ethnic. And she mentioned that word, that she kept hearing that she was ethnic. And she'd already figured out that she wasn't getting a lot of jobs that she would have if she'd been blonde. And so what she realized is that being ethnic was clearly some kind of a liability. But that's the term. And when I heard her say that, oh, man, it brought back a memory from probably about 1982 when I had a New York agent who was shopping me around to see if she could get me a really good job in a big market, which, by the way, she did, which I could either take or use as leverage to get more money here. And I remember her saying, I can sell you, like talk about a piece of meat, I can sell you everywhere but south of the Mason-Dixon line. And I said, what's with the Mason-Dixon line? She said, you're too ethnic. Too ethnic. Now, I ain't Italian. But like Marisa, I ain't blonde either. I'm a Jew. And so it's known by people whose job it is to get other people jobs where you'll sell and where you won't. And sorry, south of the Mason-Dixon line, you ethnic types. And I remember thinking, well, I wouldn't want to go anywhere south of the fucking Mason-Dixon line. And I still feel the same way. F them. Hey, guess what I saw? This is a big shocker. You know that bill we were all so excited about? The one that passed because Joe Manchin decided, all right, I guess we'll let it go. Well, that bill, remember I said, don't count your chickens before they're hatched? I don't think I said that, but I implied that it had a long way to go. And one of the first hurdles it had to clear was every Democratic senator has to be on board. And there's one who ain't. And we know who that is. Sinema. And so it turns out that she is already insisting that the bill be changed, and changed in ways that protect rich people from paying their fair share of taxes. Now, up in the tax revenue for corporations that use every tax loophole known to man to avoid paying anything near their fair share. I mean, a lot of them, as we know, don't pay a dime. And this is who she thinks that the Democrats of Arizona who sent her to Washington, this is who she thinks they want her to protect. So apparently she wants all of these things where they're going after these loopholes. She wants to start eviscerating them. I so want to strangle this woman. You hear that, Secret Service? Just kidding. Just kidding. She just enrages me. And the fact is that since 2017, when she flounced her way into the Senate, she has taken over $2 million from Wall Street lobbyists. $2 million. The grifters aren't all in the Republican Party, ladies and gentlemen. We got our grifters too. $2 million they invested in her. And she's proving that investment to be a wise one. What'd I get here? Oh, this is the funniest thing I ever saw. A Cracker Barrel. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever been in one? I actually spent most of my life never having been in one until maybe about 3 years ago. I forget where I was going. I was driving east. I was in the middle of nowhere, which means, I think, central Pennsylvania. And I was hungry. And the only thing I saw was a Cracker Barrel. And I went for it. And I was blown away. I had no idea you walk through this gift shop thing with every manner of kitsch imaginable in it. It was mind blowing. And then there's the restaurant. I went in and I had I want to say a sort of a glutinous, a politically incorrect meal of some sort. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was, it was just okay. But I was no longer a Cracker Barrel virgin. And I realized when I was there that these are the people that supposedly, I don't understand. And I was in that foreign territory. Well, Cracker Barrel, ladies and gentlemen, has added a menu item. And the addition of this one thing on the Cracker Barrel menu has caused a lot of Republican heads to explode. Because what have they added? They have added a plant-based breakfast sausage. Oh my God. And then they had the gall to announce it like it was something you should be proud of. They couldn't just slip it in and hope nobody noticed. No. They actually wrote, "Discover new meat frontiers." Experience the out-of-this-world flavor of impossible sausage made from plants. Why all hell has broken loose. It doesn't take much, to set anybody off these days. But that, I wonder if when they decided to add this, that there was discussions about, what this is going to do. There's going to be some hotheads who are going to go nuts. And I'm sure that's what they did. Here's some of the stuff that's been posted on their site. All right, all the more reason to stop eating at Cracker Barrel. This is not what Cracker Barrel was to be all about. Another, I just lost respect for a once great Tennessee company. If I wanted a salad, I would order a salad. Stop with the plant-based meat crap. I must admit, I'm enjoying these. Oh, no. The Cracker Barrel has gone woke. It really is the end times. So there you have it. And a spokesperson for Cracker Barrel has already sent out a statement to the Washington Post about this, what they're calling a dust up. We appreciate the love our fans have for our all-day breakfast menu. At Cracker Barrel, we are always exploring opportunities to expand how our guests experience breakfast and provide choices to satisfy every taste bud, whether people want to stick with traditional favorites like bacon and sausage, or are hungry for a new, nutritious, plant-based option like Impossible Sausage. So Cracker Barrel is sticking to its guns. Unbelievable. Now, Cracker Barrel, here's a little history. It says here in 1991, Cracker Barrel was the target of gay rights activists after a leaked memo said that the chain would fire any employee whose, get this is the quote, whose sexual preferences fail to demonstrate normal heterosexual values, which have been the foundation of families in our society. Cracker Barrel backed off when confronted. We have revisited our thinking on the subject and feel it only makes good business sense to continue to employ folks who will provide the quality service our customers. Where do you learn to speak like these spokespeople speak? This business speak. It makes my skin crawl. I don't even sometimes, it to me is gibberish. I have trouble understanding it. And Cracker Barrel's also been a defendant in numerous lawsuits about race. And here they are trying to be a little more, I don't know. Here's somebody who says this on the Cracker Barrel situation. This is why this country's doomed. Social media has driven most folks into living in a personal echo chamber where no one ever disagrees with them or has a different, no less an opposing viewpoint. All this does is make people nearly 100% intolerant of anything that doesn't align with all their personal beliefs. There it is. That person done said it, and that holds true for folks on the left, folks on the right. Roger writes, I got a hybrid a little over a year ago. It's quiet. I've snuck up on pedestrians. If I was so inclined, I could really hurt people. I've also parked the car and forgotten to turn it off. Right. Okay. Well, thank you for all of that. Bob and Braddock sent me this yesterday, and I did look at it. It's a Channel 4 WTAE report from probably the other night. And I guess the Republican candidate for governor, that'd be Doug Mastriano, was in the neighborhood. And so PAE sent a reporter. It was billed as a meet him, talk to him, public thing at some place. I forget where. And the reporter tries to ask Mastriano a question as he walks into the facility, and he does not even deign to acknowledge the reporter. And he's surrounded by a lot of big men. And then later, the reporter tries to go inside, and a very big man just flat out stops him. Where are you going? And says, this is a private event. He says, I just want to ask, this is the candidate for governor who refuses to talk to media, which I suppose endears him to his neo-fascist supporters. Refuses to talk to media. Every media, broadcast and print, have asked to sit down and interview this guy who wants to be the governor. And he won't talk. I mean, this PAE was pushed out. Then they went to the guy who owns the venue and said, this was said to be a public event. Is this public or is it private? And the guy who owned the venue said it's public. Well, not when Mastriano and his thugs take over. It is not. And the headline here is Doug Mastriano aides refuse to allow questions at campaign event. Those are aides? Those are brown shirts. Those are thugs. It's a new kind of political aid on the Republican side. Frigging thugs. God. Incredible. Which brings me to this thing I saw. Dana Milbank, who so often writes stuff that I wish I'd said. It's a pretty long essay, and it's called The GOP is Sick. It didn't start with Trump, and it won't end with him. And so it is for those of us for whom our recent history, and by recent I even mean 2 decades, the history we've lived through as adults who are actually paying attention, that it can just blur and a lot of it be forgotten. That, so when we end up with somebody like Donald Trump in the White House, we think, how the fuck did this happen? But if you look at history and of the history of the Republican Party specifically, you see exactly how it happened. Oh, I see. So this is one of the reasons it's so long. It's part of a book he's written called The Deconstructionists, the 25-year crack-up of the Republican Party. So he goes back 25 years, and it takes you back to Newt Gingrich. Right? And oh my God, you forget you do forget the little red flags, the huge red banners that were waving in front of us before January 6th, before where we are now, before Mastriano and you just can't make this stuff up. And I'll just, let me share just a little bit of it with you. I'm just sort of, I'm racing through this. But he reminds us that long before Trump told more than 30,000 lies during his presidency, who could possibly count them all? A lot of other lies were becoming the daily discourse for the Republican Party. Remember the conspiracy theory that Vince Foster in the Clinton White House had been murdered? And a lot of people here, Richard Mellon Scaife had a lot to do with getting that thing going. That Hillary Clinton had him offed. There were 4 separate independent investigations that were done because of Republicans saying, he was murdered. He was murdered by the Clintons. 4 separate investigations, all of which arrived at the same conclusion, which was Vince Foster committed suicide. Gingrich said at the time, after all 4, I don't accept it. Well, so there again, there you have, like, Mr. Trump, you lost. I don't accept it. That's a lie. And then, again, the Republicans, Dick Cheney, George W. Bush, darkly suggesting that Iraq was responsible for the 9/11 attacks when they knew Saddam Hussein had nothing, not a thing to do about it. Their friends, the Saudis, had everything to do about it. That was a big lie. And look what that did. And then the spewing hate of others. Remember Pat Buchanan? Oh boy, I do. He ran for the GOP presidential nomination. Just a little off in your timing, Pat. If you'd been around now, you'd be a shoo-in. In 92 and 96. He was inclined to say nice things about Adolf Hitler. He talked about the nasty treatment of European Americans and non-Jewish whites. He was an extraordinary anti-Semite. He's the one who started first talking about invasion of brown people. And he ran on the phrase that I'll put America first. And then, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck. Limbaugh with his Barack the Magic Negro song. Glenn Beck with claiming Obama hated white people. The birther stuff. They have trafficked in this kind of ugliness for a long time, but it stayed somewhat on the edges. Then the Tea Party, then the Republicans intimidating the Miami-Dade County Elections Department into stopping the recount in 2000. They were squawking, stop the count, stop the fraud. Some of the people who were very active in that helping the Stop the Steal movement now. So this effort to sort of suggest that Democrats lied and cheated when it came to elections. If you read this history, it really is frightening. It really is. But you see how it happened. And he ends with, John Boehner getting to the point where he retired. And you might forget what he said. He said, I'm disgusted with the growing circle of crazy inside my party. Circle of crazy. This is 2015. And he actually said Republicans can't govern. Compromise, that wasn't their thing. Now, notice he's not saying our thing. He's already disassociating himself. And he's talking about they wanted wedge issues, conspiracies, crusades. And he said, I'm sick of living in crazy town. Every second of every day since Barack Obama became president, I was fighting one batshit idea after another. John Boehner, just 7 years ago. So I do recommend it if you have an opportunity, or for that matter, you can read the book. It's good. Milbank also said about the, I don't know where I read this, about the voters in Arizona who put forward these absolute terrifying fascistic lunatics to run in the general election. And he suggested that Republicans are always saying Democrats have dead people voting, which is never true. And Milbank said, the dead are not voting in Arizona. The brain dead are. And speaking of voting, and also nodding to our caller a while back who is feeling very optimistic, they've now ascertained that of the voters in Kansas who registered to vote after the Supreme Court shot down Roe v. Wade, it's now known that 70% of those new registered voters were women, which is good. And the other thing I want to tell you, which I read, which is so frightening, and again, a reminder of what we're dealing with when we're dealing with the current iteration of the Republican Party, is that apparently civics teachers in Florida are freaking out because they were forced to attend a 3-day patriotic history seminar. This is a mandatory indoctrination of what it is they're going to be teaching now. Doesn't matter what you've always been teaching in your civics class. Under the DeSantis regime, here is what you are going to be teaching. 3-day mandatory indoctrination. And they're speaking out about some of what they were told. One example is the only one I have. I'm sure there's enough that would, I'm sure there's a ton more where this came from. They were told that students were to be taught that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson opposed slavery. They were not allowed to talk about the fact that Washington and Jefferson were slave owners. I have no words. That's going on now in Florida. And anyone who votes for a Republican anymore is voting for this kind of terrifying revisionism and fascistic propagandistic indoctrination. And on that happy note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here. Have a good one and talk to you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.